friends, it's Lael with Lael by Mail. Welcome back to part 2. Thank you so much for joining me. If you were with me last week, thanks so much for coming back. And if you are new, welcome. A couple quick things. If you are participating in the live chat, please leave a comment. Tell me your name and where you're from, and I encourage you to chat with us as we go along. We had a lot of fun in our last video. My husband and one of our sons also kind of participated in the chat, and we got a little silly, but it was fun. If you are not watching live or chatting with us for the watch party, I also encourage you to please leave a comment and let me know, again, your name and where you're from. And it just is always really helpful for me to know who's watching. So I'd appreciate that. If you missed the part 1 of the video, I've included that in the description down below. So there's a link down below, and I encourage you to give that a watch and then maybe come back and watch this one. So in part 1, we talked about intro to traveler's notebooks. We talked about the different sizes and a bunch of different ideas on what you can use them for. So here in part 2, part 2, we are going to talk about kind of getting started, getting your traveler's notebook set up in a fun and creative way. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to encourage you to stick around to the end of the video. I've done some Q&As based on questions that I received both during part 1 video and questions I've received since that video. And then I also have a fun kind of announcement that I will add on the end. All right, let's get going. A few housekeeping items before we really dig in. So the first thing is, if your screen looks blurry, I've put a screenshot up that you'll see right now. You want to click on the little gear at the bottom of the video and then click on Quality HD. That should fix any blurriness problems that you have. I received, you guys, a ton of great questions following the last video, either if you were on the live chat as we did the watch party for part 1, or if you emailed me or messaged me after part 1. So I am going to take a few minutes at the end of this video and answer some of those questions. So I encourage you to watch until the end for some of those questions and answers. I also am going to make a little announcement at the end of the video as well. So I really encourage you to watch to the end. Okay, you guys, the biggest thing that I hope that you got out of the part 1 video is you do you. And that is how I kind of started to wrap up part 1. You do you. That's so important. It's like anything we do in life, your clothing styles, how you exercise, how you eat, the car you drive, where you live, really all of that. It's you do you. Don't get too caught up in what you saw me do, and don't get caught up in what you see other people do. The whole purpose of this part 2 is to talk about how to get started, and we're going to cover that in 4 easy steps. So I want you to make sure as you're watching part 2 that you really keep that you do you in mind. I also am going to show just really quickly a couple of slides of what I showed you last time. And the first one being how, when I started, how basic everything was. So really, I was just writing things in my traveler's notebook, and that worked for me for a really long time. So I also want you to keep that in mind. So as we jump into the 4 easy steps, the first step is really decide what you want to use it for. So if you're thinking you want to start using a traveler's notebook, ask yourself the question, what do I want to use it for? And I'm going to pop up the slide that I showed in part 1. These are some of the different ideas that I have of things that you can use them for. List making, using it for a calendar, using it for a journal, a diary, using it for big projects, little projects, habit tracking, using it purely for a creative outlet. So lots and lots of different ideas. So before you jump in, start thinking about really what it is that you want to use a traveler's notebook for. And you know what? I would recommend that you maybe just pick 1 or 2 things. You don't have to do all the things at once. Sometimes we get so excited and so caught up in wanting to do all the things. So let's think about that. Maybe just pick 1 or 2 to start. And that is That's really the first, that's the first of the 4 steps. So what I thought I would do is I want to show you mine, and I showed this a little bit in part 1, but as I started thinking what I wanted to use my daily traveler's notebook for, this is the one that I carry around with me pretty much all the time. It's always in my purse, it may be in the car, it's always on my desk. So the different things that I use it for, first and foremost, this is kind of my project list or my to-do list. These are the things that I write down that I need to remember, things that I want to make sure I work on. I get lots of ideas, but I don't always remember them. So this is where I kind of write those things down. And for me, I like to decorate. So even though it's just a little bit, I like to decorate, and we'll talk about decorating quite a bit in the kind of 4th step. But this is basically just my to-do list, and this is really my primary use for my traveler's notebook. If you said, Lael, what is the one thing, if you could only use a traveler's notebook for one thing, that's what it would be for me, kind of my to-do list and my project list. So that is, that's the first thing I use it for. The second thing I use it for, this is more project-based. So my next insert is more project-based. This is where I keep my social media calendar, different ideas and different things I want to post about. My emails that I send out, my Lael by mail emails, what topics I have, and then also my YouTube videos, so what topics I have there. And I do that month by month. I also later have different areas for business ideas that I have, products, kits, and classes, and things like that. So I've kind of divided that one up into 2 sections, and we're going to talk about how you can divide your inserts or your traveler's notebooks into a couple of different sections in a bit. The next one, this is my calendar, and I use the monthly calendar insert, and we're going to talk about this too in a sec of what I've done here. But anyway, this is my monthly calendar insert, and right now April is looking pretty empty. My hair appointment's now been canceled. My teaching engagement that weekend has been canceled. This is a dentist appointment. Pretty sure I'm going to cancel that anyhow. So I like to decorate my monthly calendar. So this is kind of a fun way that I keep my high-level calendar. Now, these aren't the things that I'm really kind of my to-do list on a day-by-day basis, but that's the calendar. The next one is my habit tracker, and I talked about habit tracking in the first video. So if you missed that, there's a link in the description of the video. So those right now, those are the 3 inserts that I am using. So recap step 1, think about what you want to use your traveler's notebook for before you start. All right, step 2 in getting started. Step 2 is picking a size, and that is one of the most common questions that I usually receive when I teach a traveler's notebook class. Definitely one of the most common questions that I received after part 1. So when it comes to picking a size, I'm going to pull up the slide again that I shared during part 1. These are all different size inserts. My recommendation is that you start with an insert. If you really are not sure what size that you want, start with an insert before you actually purchase a cover. The covers can range anywhere typically from $20 up to $100 plus, depending on what that cover is made of. If it is a handmade, hand-stitched leather cover, you're definitely going to pay more than if it's, a faux leather or fabric or something. So pick a size. And I have 2 different sizes here. This is a standard and this is a pocket. So when we look at those 2 sizes, so this is the field note or pocket size. And as we're talking about different sizes and what I showed on the slide, the sizes are usually the size of the insert, not necessarily the size of the cover or the traveler's notebook itself. So when we're sizing, think about the inserts. This obviously is a little bit smaller. This is a 5.5 by 3.5. And benefits of a smaller field note or pocket size like this. Obviously, it's smaller, a little bit more compact, especially when we sit it next to or on top of the regular standard size. So if I have a smaller purse or a smaller bag, I can throw that into my bag and it's definitely more compact. Now, depending on what you're using your traveler's notebook for, you may not have enough room in this insert to write. So this particular brand does include the 4 elastics, just like the standard. obviously the notebooks are a little bit smaller, so something to keep in mind. And then also when we look at the insides, so we'll look at the insides of these two. Typically your standard, well, I shouldn't even say most, some standard traveler's notebooks have pockets on the interior, and that just depends on the manufacturer. But in this case, you can see definitely fewer pockets here than here. So that is the field note or the pocket. This one is the standard, and I'm showing you these two sizes because these are the two sizes that that I use, and I definitely use the standard more so than the pocket. The pocket for me is just kind of a fun little thing to play with. So the standard, when we again talk about the sizing, the size here is 8.25 by 5. Now this is a standard wide insert, the 8.25 by 5. And as we pull in a regular standard, same height, also 8.25, it is just a bit narrower. So this one is 4.33 inches instead of the 5 inches. And I definitely prefer the standard wide because obviously they are wider. So as I put one on top of the other, it just gives you that much more as you are writing and working. I really also like the pockets. Again, depending on the manufacturer, there may be pockets or not, but I like to have the pockets to decorate. And we'll kind of talk about how I do that. So that is the second step as you are getting started with the traveler's notebook, determining what size you want to use. The third step in getting started is to add your inserts. Now going back to the first step, deciding what you want to use your traveler's notebook for. If you want to use your traveler's notebook for a calendar, you might choose a calendar insert. So that might be a monthly or a weekly, even daily. If you're using to-do lists or sketches, you might have lined inserts or blank inserts. So we will take what I have selected and we will add them into our traveler's notebook. So super easy. You have the elastic bands. This particular traveler's notebook has 4 elastic bands. I'm going to say the majority of the, I won't say standard because I don't want to confuse that with the standard size, but the majority of the off-the-shelf, let's call it, traveler's notebooks out there have 4 elastics. So you can insert at least or add at least 4 inserts. There are some ways that you can add additional inserts, but I'm not going to cover that now. I will, hint, hint, cover that in a future video. All right. So let's add our inserts, and super easy. All I'm going to do is I'm going to open that insert to the center and I slide right through the elastic band. Super, super easy, right? I'm going to take my next insert and I will do the same. So I can do that up to 4 times, and eventually I could add more if I wanted. And this is the beauty of the whole traveler's notebook system, because once one of my inserts fills up, my traveler's notebook now becomes really a refillable notebook, because I could take this insert out if it was full and add a new insert. But I haven't, I still have my main traveler's notebook and I have my other inserts that are still very much in use. So I can kind of move things around as needed. My last insert, we're going to do something with this. When we talk about adding our inserts and selecting our inserts, we can subdivide our inserts if we want. And there are a number of ways to do that. One of the things I want to cover quickly is how to do that using different tabs. So in this particular insert, I have added a tab, and that tab I've just added to one of the pages. So I could basically add as many tabs as I wanted here and divide it up into as many different sections as I needed. So maybe I'm not sure that I would use a whole notebook just for lists, so I could have just a section of my traveler's notebook for lists. So let's take a look at how I would do that. And the products that I'm showing you here are all available on my website at laelbymail.com. So we're going to start out with this is a sticker tablet, and it is all about tabs. So there are different colors, there are different patterns. Some of the tabs have words on them, some don't. The sticker tablet also includes words, so lots of different things. So, and in fact, these are even hole reinforcers, which are great to use on your planners or just reinforcing different holes. So let's take a look. Well, let's build one. Let's take this little guy. There is one of my tab stickers, and all I'm going to do is set that I'm adhering it right there to the edge, right? So there we go. And I could add as many of those as I wanted. Now, these are made of sticker paper and they're pretty thick, but if this is getting a lot of use, this is probably that little tab might start to get a little bit of wear and tear and maybe bend. So what I always want to add to that are the, oh, they're clear, so they're hard to see, are the clear tab stickers. So these are tab stickers that are a heavier duty plastic. They are clear. So if I take that and adhere that over the top of that, and this is gonna be really hard to see, you guys, I apologize. I'm even having a hard time seeing it without my glasses on. I want to just put that pretty much right over the top. Now, if I wanted, I could, well, actually, I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. So, and then I bend that over, and now I have a reinforced tab sticker. So from there, if I had wanted to label that, I could have labeled it ahead of time before I put that clear tab sticker on. I could have used one of these stickers from that same tablet to label it. I could have taken out a Sharpie or a pen and wrote and used my writing. Oh goodness, use my writing to, why does that sound so weird? Oh my goodness, I could just write on there what I wanted to say. Oh heavens. I could also use, these are also on my website, you guys. These are clear labels. And so they have lots and lots and lots of different words on them. Expenses, purchases, a special day, blah, blah, blah. So tons and tons of different ones. So let's say, oh, I know. Let's say I want to have a section of my traveler's notebook be books that I want to read. So this one happens to say to read. And I have now added that right to the top of that, that little thing there. My little tab. Oh my goodness, my words, you guys, use your words, Lael. My words are having a hard time coming to me today. Anyhow, so I could do that. So I could not only add 4 inserts to my traveler's notebook, but I could subdivide my individual inserts so that I could kind of section those off. And that is the 3rd step. All right, we are well on our way. We are now ready for step 4. So to recap, we have already decided what we want to use a traveler's notebook for. We have decided what size we wanted to use, and then we started adding inserts to our traveler's notebook. So now the next step for me is to decorate. And when we rewind all the way back to the beginning or the end of the part 1 video, we circle back to the you do you. I like to decorate my traveler's notebook. I like to really decorate it up. So I have in my traveler's notebooks, well, I've pulled a couple out. So I like to decorate the insert. I like to decorate the pockets. I also like to decorate the inserts. So as we start talking about decorating, let's talk about the kind of basic supplies that you need. And really, this goes back to the you do you. For me, washi is key. So I love washi and I use washi all the time in my traveler's notebook. So you'll grab your favorite washi and that will be one of the first things. The next thing, I like to have stickers. So all different kinds of stickers. And stickers are important to me because they are flat. I typically in my traveler's notebooks don't like to use anything that has dimension to it because if it does, then the pages start to get a little wonky and it gets a little bit hard to write on future pages. So flat things like stickers. I like decorative stickers. I also often will use alphabet stickers and then number stickers as well. I love using number stickers when it comes to doing my lists. So those are the basics. And really the only basic that you need, well, and I forgot this little guy, a pen. And that's another one of the big questions that I always receive, and one that I received after the part 1 video is, what type of pen do I use when I'm writing in my traveler's notebooks? 9 times out of 10, I am using a Sharpie, and I have linked this up in the favorites on my website, so you'll have a link in the description of the video, but it is a fine tip Sharpie pen. And that one for me is kind of the best one that I found to use because it is so fine and it's really easy to find those. So, but really going back to the basics, all you need is an insert and a pen. If you are just using your traveler's notebooks to write things down, then those two things are great. And I do recommend a Sharpie because it's permanent. All right, beyond that, when I was talking about the basic supplies, scrapbook paper. Scrapbook paper for me, 12 by 12 scrapbook paper is another tool or supply that I always have when I'm using my traveler's notebook. So let's take a look at what I do with these things. I have already trimmed down 2 of my 12 by 12 papers, and I have trimmed these down to 8.25 inches tall or 8¼ inches tall. And the reason that I have trimmed them to that height is because that is the height of my insert. That's the height of the inserts that I use. And I have left those 12 inches wide. So let's talk about why I use scrapbook paper that's cut down and what I do with it. If you happen to watch the part 1 video, I made a quick reference to this particular insert. And I mentioned that although the cover is very much Christmas related, when you come inside, this really has nothing to do with Christmas. And what happened when I started using traveler's notebooks a number of years ago, I decided I wanted to decorate the covers because I thought that would be really fun. So I decorated this cover and I decorated it for Christmas. The problem was once Christmas was past, I now had a traveler's notebook insert. I glued everything on here. So inside, not Christmas, outside Christmas. So I kind of thought for a while on what I could do to still be able to decorate, but not have that problem. And one day it just kind of hit me. Some of you may remember way back in grade school, and depending on how old you are, we used to have textbooks, and I know a lot of schools don't even have textbooks anymore. But the first day of school when you received your textbooks, your teachers instructed you to go home and cover your textbooks, right? And what did we cover our textbook with? A brown paper sack. Basically, we created a slip cover to protect our textbook. And we doodled on it and added Mrs. Grossman stickers, and eventually halfway through the year, that slip cover would get all yucky and it would fall off and we would have to make another one. So that is what I do with my inserts. I like to slip cover them. So here's an example of an insert that has been slip covered. And look at this. I can just peel this right off. Once I am done with this month or this look and I want to move to something else, that's just a slip cover and I can peel that off. I can then use that on a scrapbook page or make a card with it or a tag with it, whatever it may be. So I'm going to set that off to the side. But now we are going to go through that process of slip covering an insert, and it is super easy. I left it 12 inches wide. That's the scrapbook paper width. And I, again, trimmed it to 8.25 tall. So all I'm going to do is turn this over to the opposite side. This is going to be the inside. I want this to be what you see on the outside. And I am going to fold this. I could also score it if I have a score tool, but I'm going to fold it outside in. And the reason I'm going to fold it outside in is because when you're folding paper, a lot of times you will have breakage with the fibers. The fibers of the paper will break, and basically that ink is sitting on top of the paper. So as you are folding it, if there's going to be any breakage, it'll be on the outside or on the fold. So if I fold that outside in, I open that up, then any of my breakage is going to take place on the inside instead of the outside. All right, so I am going to, I now have my centerfold. I have my centerfold there, and I am going to open that insert to the center and roughly line that up. And oh goodness, I don't have my readers. So hopefully this will be straight. I am now going to fold that over. And if I wanted to do the outside in technique again, I could, but for sake of time, I'm just going to do this. So I have folded that over the left inside cover, the front inside cover, and now I'm going to use some washi. And the reason that I use washi is because washi is temporary, right? It is not permanent. So it will stay for as long as I want it to, ish. When I say ish, you guys know some washis, not all washis created equal. So it will pretty much stay for as long as I want it to. But I'm just going to temporarily then tack that down with a piece of washi, a little strip of washi. So that will be temporarily slip covered. And then I would do the same thing here. I'm going to wrap that again. And you'll notice I have closed this to wrap it because once that closes, there's more dimension in there, and I want to make sure there's enough give when I open and close it that it is not going to kind of start to bend and be too taut. So that's why I am closing it that way. So we're going to do that. And if I wanted, I could bring in my bone folder, or I could use my fingernail just to kind of make sure I get a really good sharp edge there. Take my washi again and temporarily adhere. All right, magic of film. I now have my second insert slip covered as well. So all my friends out there, those of you that are scrapbookers, go back to your stash. I know you have lots and lots of scrapbook paper. And sometimes we get so caught up in the, oh, that's old, I can't use it. I can't use it on a layout. Bring it back out. I think you'll be surprised. I've seen a lot of my older scrapbook paper come back into use as I've worked them into my slip covering my inserts. So it's just kind of a fun way to use some of the product that you already have. All right, the next step. When I'm usually decorating my inserts, I decorating my inserts and then also decorating my pockets. I usually start out with at least 3 pieces of paper. So I would use 2 full 12 by 12 sheets that I cut down. Then I also like to use a piece of paper like this that is cut apart. So in one piece of paper like this, I can have lots of different patterns and colors, and I'll use that to decorate my insert as well as decorate the pockets. So the magic of film, voila! I've cut up all of those individual pieces from that 12 by 12 sheet. So I will use these to not only decorate the fronts of my inserts, I will also use them to decorate the pockets of my traveler's notebook. All right, so I have grabbed some stickers that coordinate with the 2 papers that I had used to cover my inserts. Incidentally, this is a Heidi Swap collection, a new collection that I'm using, and I have linked to that in the description of the video. All right, so from here, basically, I just start playing, and sometimes it comes right to me, and other times I have to kind of play around a bit. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out using some of these, the cards that I cut. Also remember that most of your scrapbook paper is going to be double-sided, so you also have a pattern on the back that you can work with. So I would generally just start adding things to the pockets. And sometimes you'll have 3 pockets, sometimes you'll have 4 pockets, or even 2. So just kind of start playing and stuff those pockets. I love the rainbow in this collection, so we may use that. If we're going to use that, you know what? I'm not going to use that because I'm going to use one of my stickers. I'm going to grab a few of these little tags. Maybe we'll put a tag here, and then maybe we'll slide a tag in here. Ooh, I like this stripe. Now, I'm not particularly interested in the who, what, when, where, because that doesn't really apply to my traveler's notebook. So I'm just going to take my scissors, and in the interest of time, I'm just going to cut this. I'd probably grab my trimmer out and trim that to make sure it was straight. We'll put that little guy right there maybe. And a lot of times I'm just playing. I'm playing with things to see what they're going to look like. I don't quite know what they're going to look like, so I'll put some things in and maybe pull some things out again. It just really depends on what I see and what I like. Something like this, if I didn't necessarily want the part that said easy peasy lemon squeezy, but I liked the yellow, I could just tuck that right in there to give it a little bit of extra color. All right, so I'm going to keep decorating. All right, you guys, this part is always a little bit of a trial and error for me. So I have decorated my pockets, and I will just stick things in, move things around, put things down, pick them up. I really move things a lot, and I just work on it until I get it to where I like it. What I just did there, and that's just a weird little thing I do in all of my projects, I took my little Sharpie and I outline all the cards and things just so that way they just happen to stand out a little bit more. Sometimes I'll also pull in other stickers that I think might coordinate if I feel like I need a few different colors or what have you. So this is a great part for also decorating. And typically what I'll do is, these were the parts, and I've already trimmed them down, that were left over after I cut the bottoms of both of those papers off. So I've trimmed these to 8. And by the way, all of these little tips and techniques I'm showing you, I am showing you based on that standard wide insert, but you can take all of these things and modify them to the different size traveler's notebook that you are using if you're not using a standard like I am. So these are the pieces that were left over and double-sided. So I think I'm going to use that side. I'm just going to tuck that right in there, and it just gives it a little bit more color. And then I am going to, I think we're going to put this little guy in first. Add that one. And then we'll add, let's see. I mean, it really, you guys look, it really just depends on my mood. Do I like that? If I like that, I probably would change that out. I'm going to say probably to this pink because it would go a little bit more that way, right? And then that would be there. So one look. And then my other look would be having that fun, cute fruit paper. And then I would put that right there. So lots of different options. Another thing that I will do, and let me find my, oh, it's a mess in here, you guys. And this is how I craft. It's just one giant tornado mess. This is my current traveler's notebook that I'm using. And sometimes I will take the little pieces that are left over like that, and I'll take a little bit of pom-pom trim. What's interesting, this is left over from my January traveler's notebook, but really you don't see any of this. So I could just keep using this over and over. And if I want to, pull that out and slide that in. Isn't that cute, that little fun pom-pom trim? So I think that we may go with that. Okay, if I wanted, I could also continue to decorate the covers of my inserts. Both of these are pretty decorative, so I don't think I'm going to, oh, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to change my mind. I like this one. And that's a nice thing, is that I have multiple inserts. I can totally change up the look by just changing out whatever one I put forward. So if I was to continue to decorate, this is an example of the one I'm currently using. And I just took a 3x4 card and added a couple of stickers, and there we go. All right, a couple things that I want to talk about when it comes to functional decoration. Kind of sounds a little bit like an oxymoron, but I promise you it is not. Oxymoron, that is like jumbo shrimp. All right, so let's grab, what did I do with them when I brought them up? Right, so that took me a little bit longer than I thought. I have no idea what I did with what I was looking for. So we're talking about functional decorating, and the first thing I want to talk about are playing cards. So I have 2 everyday run-of-the-mill playing cards here. The key with these are that they are wax coated. Other than that, it really doesn't matter where you get them. I usually get mine at the dollar store because I like to include these in my traveler's notebook classes or kits when I'm teaching them. So I can make washi cards with these. So I'm going to start doing this, and I will talk as I'm putting them together. So I'm just grabbing some different colors, different patterns of washi, and I am winding a couple times around. And I'm going to do that with just some of my favorite washi here. As I am winding, the reason, oh heavens, we're not going to use that one since I can't find the end. The reason I am putting together these washi cards, this is a great way for me to have washi with me on the go. So as I make these cards, I am just wrapping washi again a couple times around, different patterns, enough that I have washi to play with if I want to be decorating or making lists or working in my traveler's notebook as I am on the go. So the reason I want to use a wax playing card is because the washi will not stick. I mean, it's sticking, but it's not going to stick permanently. It is just sticking temporarily for me until I'm ready to use it. So we'll add one more little guy on here. as I'm doing this. This is also a great way if you have friends that are giant washi collectors like I am or like you are. This is also a great way to swap some of your washi. So if you had everybody get a deck of cards, 52 cards from the dollar store, and then everyone's going to take some of their favorite washi, wrap it around the card, and everybody gets together once the coronavirus is over. That's what we're in the middle of right now, but eventually we'll be socializing and seeing our friends again, and we could swap our washi, and we could do that with the cards. So I'm going to put one more little pattern on here. This is also a great way, if you have a lot of different washi, to log, oh, that won't work, to make note of the different washi that you have. So you could make a deck of washi cards. The other nice thing about having these on a playing card is that I can tuck them right inside my pocket. So I have it right there with me on the go. So I could put it in the inside pocket. I could tuck it in the back here. I could also put it in one of the zipper pouches. And I showed these in my in the part 1 video as well. So I could really load up all these pockets with a number of different washi cards, probably 2 or 3 at least in each of those. Then I like to have these with me on the go in my traveler's notebook. So what I would do is slide one of these guys right in here. And then I would load it up with more goodies so that I could work in my TN on the go. So I might have some more cards. This is a zipper pocket. Sometimes if you can put money in there, whatever you want to do. I'd load it up with some of my little extras here. I could even load it up with some stickers. And the way that I would do that, normally I would take die cuts and put them in there since they're loose and not sticky. But I could even grab my scissors and just cut out a few of these stickers from the sticker sheet. So they're still protected. They have their backing on the back. And then I could pop those. Actually, I should just do this and keep all of that together, right? So there I go. That could even go in here. Now I have stickers to work with as well. Even this little guy could slide right in there. So that's a great way for me to, a great little tip or product that I can use in my traveler's notebook to have things with me as I'm working on the go and doing my lists. Alrighty. When it comes to your decorating, I would also, if you are a stamper, definitely pull out your stamps. I love, love, love using stamps in my traveler's notebook. Gives me lots of different options, and they're flat. So even if I'm maybe going on a trip and I know I want to do a lot of stamping with alphabets, I can just even slide those right in the back of my traveler's notebook there, and I have those to work with on the go. So go to your stash, look at your stickers, look at your pattern paper, look at your stamps, your die cuts, and things like that. All right, to wrap up our decorating section, and you guys, I have so many more things that I can talk about when it comes to decorating. So bookmark that thought for a moment, and I will circle back to that at the end. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. So, as we are decorating, I do offer bi-monthly traveler's notebook kits, and it includes basically everything that you need to decorate your traveler's notebook for 2 months. And you would have, for each month, 3 sheets of 12 by 12 paper. One of those 12 by 12 sheets would be the little cut apart cards that we used. And then typically a 12 by 12 sticker, and then some little trim and things like that. So this was the part of the kit for March and April. And I do still have some of those available, and I will link them, or I have linked them in the description of the video as well. So now we're going to jump into the Q&A, some of the questions that I received following the part 1 video. I just want to remind you, if you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe so you can continue to see my videos. Also, if you are watching live, all my friends watching the premiere party with me, again, a reminder, just leave a comment in the chat where you are from and your name so I know who's here. And then if you are watching after the fact, I would love it if you would just leave a comment. Again, leave your name and let me know where you are from. All right, so let's jump into questions. First question, are all of your notebooks decorated? Or do you just have some that are more disposable with one-time use notes and they are not all decorated? There are quite a few times where I am just writing things. So I talked about that a little bit in the part 1 video. If you did not see the part 1 video, I've included a link to that in the description. But really for me, for me using traveler's notebooks, it's a form and a function. And what I mean by that, I get an immense amount of pleasure in creating. And for me, sometimes I just don't have enough time in the day to create. So if I don't have enough time in the day to create, then I can at least maybe take a little piece of washi, a sticker, and then start making my notes. So I get a little bit of creativity. Depending on how much time that I have, I may be doing more and more and more in my traveler's notebook. And I'm just going to reach here real quick because I want to show you something. This is an example. This is my coronavirus traveler's notebook that I have started. And so I'm going to talk a lot about this. I actually have a blog post coming up with Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine where I will be writing a post about how I have put this together. And it is just started. But that comes in mid-April. So if you're not subscribed to my email, please subscribe. You can do that by going to my website at laelbymail.com, and I will let you know when that post is ready. I will also be doing a follow-up video on how I put something like this together. But what I do want to show you was this. This is actually going to tie into the next question as well. Using my traveler's notebooks for me, there is a lot to that is just being creative in the creative process. So this is an example. I had a to-do list that I had put together for my husband and son of different projects they could work on while we were all home during the coronavirus. And so I had that list and I wanted to be creative yesterday. So I kind of combined both recording that list in doing a little memory keeping in my coronavirus traveler's notebook here, but then also doing some decorating at the same time. So really, for me, this was an exercise in play and being creative. I was playing with some watercolor, brush markers, anyhow. So kind of a combo of being useful, but also being creative. And that's going to tie us into the second question. Do you ever write your thoughts, lists, or notes on scrap piece of paper, then transfer them into your traveler's notebook to make them neater and or more cohesive? Which I thought that was a great question. I would not necessarily encourage you to do that or encourage you to get in a habit of doing that, because then you're trying so hard to make things look nice that I think you miss the whole concept. But again, you do you. So if that's what you want to do, then you do you. So remember this, right? I didn't ever redo this to make it look nice, but, and I didn't plan this. This actually kind of worked out perfectly this way. These were the 2 lists I had started for my husband and our one son who was home with us during the coronavirus. But I had started these. Then yesterday I wanted to play and I thought, you know what? This is great. I'm going to take that list. So this functional list, right? Normally I wouldn't do this, but functional list. And then I put it in my traveler's notebook. So every once in a while, I will do that. I will take a list and then put it in my traveler's notebook. But that's more if I may be doing any memory keeping, or I just really want to play like I did here with those watercolors. And then if I just wanted to play, then I could kind of redo it in my traveler's notebook. Alrighty, the next question. How do you know how much space to allot for different entries into your traveler's notebook? What do you do if you underestimated? And that's a really interesting question because I really don't. And that's not the right answer necessarily, but I don't necessarily know how much space, right? It would be hard for us to know how much space. So there are probably a couple of different ways that I handle that now that I think about it. The first being, a lot of times I just use a notebook like this. And if I know that I'm going to use this for to-do lists, then this is all for my to-do list. So I'm not really worried about allocating enough space. I think another thing to keep in mind, these little notebooks don't have a ton of pages in them. I think depending on who makes them and what type they are, they may have anywhere between, 16 and 32, 24, depending on whether they're singles. Well, they're all double-sided, but as you're counting the numbers. So it's not like you're committing to a huge notebook here. So you pretty much, I think, fill one of those up as you're working. So if you have different things that you feel like you want to section or divide your traveler's notebooks into, then that's where I would use the tab stickers that I showed you earlier. So the tab stickers where I could then come in, books I want to read. So I probably don't need a whole traveler's notebook for books I want to read. So if I started that here, and then maybe I got through, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages, that's probably good. And then you know what? If I run out of room and I read all my books and I need a new list, then I can start it later in an insert or start it in another insert. So I'd say between those two things, that's probably how I would handle it. That's an interesting question that I think I might ponder a little bit more. If that is something that you are really interested in making sure that you really allocate enough space, you might look into bullet journaling, and that is a whole other topic that we could get into. But the process of bullet journaling definitely has some tips on how to do that based on, at the beginning, setting up a legend and your pages, and then your legend tells you where different things are and so forth. So that's bullet journaling if you want to Google a little bit more about that. All right, the next question. It looks like you've added paper to some of your traveler's notebooks. Why? And this one, there are a number of different reasons. Sometimes it's form and sometimes it is function. So let's start with the function first. Depending on the type of insert that you are using, the page quality is going to vary. And the thickness of that paper is going to vary. So when I first started, I was using the Moleskine Cahiers inserts. These are basically a standard wide insert. They come with a ton of pages, which is great. The only thing that is not so great about that is the paper is super thin. So and I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but you can see even just from my black pen, I had drawn mountains over here on this side, and the mountains even showed through. So a lot of times if I'm using a much thinner insert, I will put a piece of scrapbook paper on the other side. So it becomes decorative, but it's also serving a purpose. So you will see me do that a number of times. Sometimes though, I just want to do that because I want a little bit extra fun and pattern in there. And so that is what I did here. I would just cut a piece of scrapbook paper to the size of my insert page, adhere it, and then adhere another piece that was a little bit easier for me to do the journaling on. So purely form there, definitely just decorative, really no other purpose than that. A couple more examples for different reasons. On this one that we looked at a minute ago, this one, I actually mentioned that this was watercolor. I did watercolor on here. And if I tried to watercolor on this paper, even though this particular insert is very thick, it is not necessarily thick enough for watercolor. And what I mean by that, I would probably see quite a bit of bubbling as the water took to that paper. So with this one, I trimmed down a piece of watercolor paper and then adhered that right to my insert. So I have a little tiny bit of, just a little tiny bit of bubbling there, not bubbling, it just ripple in the paper. But if I had put that between a book and let it sit for a couple of days, it would have been fine. Another reason. Okay, then this guy, this is an example of where I actually took a photo. This is the letterboard that I keep in my office, and I change out the quote every month based on my one little word for the year. So this is a photo. I took a photo, printed it on cardstock, and then cut it out, and then adhered it directly to the page in my insert. The last reason I do that is something like this. So this is my traveler's notebook that I use as I kind of do a little memory keeping when I travel, and the view that I see out the window. So I did quite a bit of stamping here. The more that I add to this traveler's notebook, especially if I have done some decorating in the beginning, things start to get a little thick, and when I stamp, I might not get a really nice crisp image. It might, depending on what I've done underneath that, it might break the image a little bit in the stamp. So in that case, I, in all of these, just trimmed down a piece of white cardstock, did all my stamping first, adhered my photo, and then adhered that entire page to my insert. And those are some of the reasons, I guess really all the reasons on why I sometimes add additional paper to my inserts. Next question, quick and easy. What type of pen do you use? I use that fine tip Sharpie, and I have linked that in the description of the video. I use that because it's black and I like black. It is a very fine tip. I like a fine tip. And then these are super easy to find off a supply store, Amazon. So I buy these, 6 or 8 at a time because I use them and they end up running out eventually. So that Sharpie pen. The next question, some of you, as you're using traveler's notebooks, if you haven't already, you may be using them a lot and taking them into business meetings and different types of meetings, maybe meeting at school, something like that. And you might not be comfortable taking your, decorated traveler's notebook in the meeting with you, and that's okay. So the question was, if you don't want to take your full traveler's notebook that's all decorated in with you, what do you suggest? And in that case, I suggest just pulling out that insert and taking that insert in with you. That way you can start fresh on a nice clean page, and no one necessarily knows about your closet habit of liking to play with stickers and washi and pens and things like that. All right, our last question that I am going to address today is, how do you remember which of your traveler's notebooks that you are putting things in? Which that is a great question. I would love to say, oh, I have a traveler's notebook and I log everything that's in all my other traveler's notebooks. I don't do that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't do that. I have a lot of traveler's notebooks, obviously. And so I remember. I try to keep certain traveler's notebooks for certain things. This one is my lister's got a list. This one is for a particular trip that I am working on. This is the one that I currently use, so I know that's what that one looks like, and so forth. I think the more traveler's notebooks that you get, it may be a little bit harder for that, but I try not to, I do actually end up moving things around, because in the fall, I might want to use this one, and if I'm using this one, I need to take the inserts out if I want to use that for my everyday. Which kind of leads me to one more question that I think I'll answer right now, and then we'll wrap up. What do you do with all your inserts once you are done using them, once they're full? And I have a lot of traveler's notebooks. That is what I will start to put my inserts in. So they kind of sit there temporarily. You could also put them in a photo box. So any typical large big box craft store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Joann's, they have the photo boxes. You could add them in there. You could put them in the magazine, the plastic magazine holder racks. You could slide them in there. Or you could store them in your empty traveler's notebooks. In the famous words of Matthew McConaughey, all right. So you guys, that is part 2. And I asked you to stick around until the very end because I said I would have a fun announcement. And I thought a lot about this, and there was so much that I didn't cover. And although when I first came up with the idea of hosting these classes, these free online classes, originally I had planned 2. And I think I had hoped that after 2 weeks that we would be on the downside of the coronavirus. And unfortunately, we're not. So I am going to continue doing these weekly classes for the next little while on here on YouTube. So the next class, I will be doing them every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And if you do not currently receive my emails, I will include a link in the description of the video so you can sign up for my emails, because Thursday or Friday each week before the next live class or the next video class, I will send out an email with the link. I think what I'm going to do the next time, you guys, I think I'm going to play with YouTube Live. So next Saturday coming up, which I think is like the 5th or 6th or something of October. I don't have a calendar in front of me. We're going to do YouTube Live. So I will be working live and we'll be chatting live and we'll have tons of fun. With that, I get questions on how I do my to-do list. So we'll make it really basic. We'll get out our supplies and I will show you my thought process of how I work through one of my really kind of fun decorative to-do lists. Then the week after that, I am going to do at least one, if not more, videos on using a traveler's notebook for memory keeping. So we will dive into how I approach that and come up with some really good ideas and fun things to share. With that said, if you have other requests, if you would like to see me do more of the traveler's notebook videos, please leave a comment on the video and I will take a look at all the requests and see what I can do. And then I also do things besides traveler's notebooks. I do lots of scrapbook kits and layout kits and mini book kits and so forth. So if you have any requests for classes related to those, please go ahead and leave me a comment and I will take a look at those as well. So once again, thanks so much for joining me. Again, if you are joining me, if you are watching this after the fact, please leave a comment, like, subscribe, and all those good things. Thanks everybody. Until next week. Bye-bye.